Today, I want to talk about the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster, which occurred on January 28th, 1986. The disaster was witnessed not only by the astronauts' families on the near the launch pad itself, but witnessed by millions of television viewers. This disaster is one of, if not the worst disasters in not only NASA history, but also the history of aviation, but also history of aeronautics as well. So, what happened on January 28th, 1986? The Challenger lifted off from the launch pad, and it looked like any other shuttle launch. There have been many shuttle launches before, but this one had chains that would lead to disaster. 73 seconds after the Challenger lifted off, there was a leak. There was a little leak from one of the rockets, and then a second after that, the spacecraft exploded, and there were no survivors. One of them being a school teacher. In the YouTube video Challenger, a case study in risk management from the Ed Villa Ball YouTube channel talks about the individual steps that happened during the Challenger disaster. The video first starts off by saying that one of the NASA engineers fears that an explosion is imminent, that disaster is imminent, and he urges the launch to stop, but it was too late. And the video also talks about how during the Challenger's development there were a lot of budget cuts, and the video also talked about how there was almost no interest in the shuttle program. And the video also talked about how this launch was supposed to be one of the most important launches since the Apollo era, since the era of the space race. So the first stage of disaster was the weather. There was a really, really strong wind that rocked the Challenger as after it lifted off, and there were miscalculations of what the wind would be like. And then the video also talked about how there were O-rings in the craft that they were frozen, and they were unable to seal the joints, and then those O-rings started to burn away. And then aluminum pieces started to fragment, and then and then when the and then during the launch, the then the aluminum slag completely falls apart, and then there was a flame that appeared on on the rocket. That was the big leak. That was the first visible chain of disaster. And then liquid nitrogen leaks, and then the second after the liquid nitrogen leaked, um then the spacecraft exploded. So now the question is, you know, how could this disaster have happened? Like, so what were the ethical decisions that led this to occur? Uh, the journalist Jennifer Lotito published an article on January 27th, 2024, just this year, called um, Three Leadership Lessons from the Challenger Space Shuttle Disaster. One of the problems that Lolito noticed was that NASA was under pressure to get this launch going so that they could keep up with their launch calendar schedule. And this was during the Reagan era, so this was during the Cold War, and so they wanted to uh, try to beat the Soviets. Um, and NASA just felt pressure to get the launch going. So Um, she also talked about the contractor Molten Theokoi, Theokol, however you pronounce it. Um, they didn't consider the engineers. They didn't consider the engineers' concerns. They just wanted a successful launch. They just wanted a successful launch. And also, there was a groupthink. There was a groupthink in NASA that only considered one opinion. That only considered one opinion. They only considered one opinion just to get the launch going, despite the engineers' concerns. And like the Pinto, in this case, it led to lives being lost. So my advice is to factor all the opinions of everyone involved, including the engineers, because after all, they built the craft. They built the craft. So all opinions need to be considered and looked at. And the and also like the Pinto, this was also groupthink because this was multiple leaders. This was this was all the leaders making one decision, and it just led to lives being lost.